This is Emeritus Professor Stephen Adei. As usual, I come to you every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. on ZFM 101.9. It is the channel for business and leisure. And I hope you tune in every Saturday at 8:30. And if you miss it, don't forget to go to the YouTube, because we have a repeat there after the morning session, and look for the channel of Professor Emeritus Stephen Adei. My team several weeks now has been leadership for everyone, everywhere. And the last two sessions we went through community leadership, the principles. Then we came to how young man and woman can assume leadership within their community. I want to end the community leadership addressing traditional leadership. I used to tell my children when they were younger, I say, there's a bottom line. Unless you are handicapped, and thank God none of them was and is, you are going to university. So I remember when my oldest child was about 4 years, we had some very good Australian friends when I was a student in Australia. And one day, the lady in the house asked my wife, why does your son, when he's talking, says, when I grow up and I go to university, I mean, how can you 3-year, 4-year-old talking? I said, yes, because I've put it in their mind that going to school and going to university should be seen as a natural progression. And then, lo and behold, all of them have the minimum, they have qualifications, a master's degree. But the third born, when she finished her degree, she had met a lover, she wanted to marry. I said, no, you are going to do your master's before you marry. So she saw the light and went to my university, the best university because I went there, Sydney University, and did the master's in science education. When she finished, she said, Daddy, here's the certificate, I'm going to marry. I said, that's okay. The point of these jokes is this. There are certain things, so far as we are in the world, matter. Education matter. In the same way in Ghana, chieftaincy matters. When you have authority and you have power and you are educated, either of them you are assumed to be wise until you prove yourself otherwise. A chief, a traditional leader, Yana, you mention Asante, you mention, Ochihene, Togwe Afede, everybody defer to them. In the same way, even at the village level, Odikro, just recently they installed someone as Odikro, the chief for my village. And immediately, when he's coming, he has an umbrella about 6 people following him. I said, wow. The day before, we might have sat down and chopped and pussy together. Now he's a chief. Let me tell you, positions, titles, don't by themselves give you a positive influence, but at least they give you the chance to influence people on a larger scale. And therefore, people must, when they are hereditary leaders, must recognize that they are in a leadership position. However, leadership is a double-edged sword. You can be functional leader or dysfunctional. And the higher you are, the more magnified your functionality or dysfunctionality. Therefore, once you are blessed to be a traditional authority, you must give content to your position or your power and your authority, you give content to it. Traditionally, even a chief is not supposed to be going about solo and being the boss. Traditional leadership in its right sense is what we call distributed leadership. In Ghana, you have, if you're Mahene, there are the sub-chief, Kodre, Akwemu, and all. In fact, as an Akan, I liked the formation, though it was related to wartime, but it meant that they go together. There's Adontin ahead of it. The paramount chief or the king will be in the center. Then the Bunkum, there's Nifa, there is Chidom, there is the ones, they leave the women at those times and other things to look after things, and all of them. And then even at the palace, there were Abusuapanyis were there, they have the authorities, there were the linguists to make sure that even if the chief is wrong, the linguist can help improve what he has said. It was a distributed leadership. And if you are at a higher level, like Umayhene, then you have the various chiefs. And they were, each one of them, for example, were not appointed by the Umayhene. The Abusuapanyi will select and then bring the person to you. So, if you are very, excuse me, say, Nanano Musebio, you are wise, you enter chieftaincy with a network. And it is which is a big advantage, because others without that position have to now build that network. It is there. But unfortunately, often, people abuse it. They think that the day they are made the chiefs. No, you have to mobilize them. So the first thing is to see it as a distributed leadership, and that you are at the head of a pantheon. Even in the village, the reason why my new chief went to the village, he wanted to come and be with me and commiserate with me with my wife's 1-year anniversary. There were about 8 people, because immediately he was appointed. He had to appoint these sub-divisional chiefs to be with him. That brings us to the very second important one. Traditionally, the chief is entrusted with the assets of the community. As a custodian, many chiefs think that the land belongs to them. The answer is no. The land belongs to the community. In fact, traditionally among the Akans, the first person to clear a virgin forest owns the land. However, in order not to misuse the land, give it to foreigners without adequate compensation, when they are selling the land, the chief is brought in, and of course, the chief gets a certain percentage. This idea that a chief can just go and sell the land around the village, other things, does not accord with Ghanaian tradition. Almost everywhere. I know a few, because Ghana Christian International High School wants to establish schools in all the 4 corners of Ghana. So we had to go and buy a land we bought a land in Ho, one in Raura, Techiman, Tamale, Takoradi. The only place we are still having problem with is in Kumasi, of all places, and Takoradi. Listen, wherever we go, there's a landowner and there's a chief. And you involve both. And as I'm not the typical traditionalist, but someone who knows Amamere, the customs. If a chief says he's selling me a land, I will not look at them twice. Whom does the land belong to? And when the chief, the person is the one I go to. But then I say that, look, there's a chief. We go to the chief. When we do an indenture, the chief must sign the family. But let me tell you, if you are a traditional leader, how you manage the assets of the community, and not only the land, the rivers. Most chiefs are not respected today, especially in the Galamsey area, because they have sold, and sometimes they have allowed some people's farms to be destroyed. As a chieftaincy, it's assets-based authority, and management of it. It's so important. That brings me to a third most important thing. Leadership is mobilizing people, giving them a vision, mobilizing them to infect it. This day and age, all that I hear is Akwaside or Ojira, and then there's no. It gives you an introit, but it's meant to be an annual mobilization of your people to re-energize them so that in the coming year they can go forward in planting, in harvesting the yams and the rest. I think that this aspect must be very important. In my area, there was one chief, Adansehene, wonderful. He called all his citizens from the area who were in certain level of position, PV Obin, myself, and the rest. And he formed us into a Adansi advisory group. And we all had to go because we respected the chief. Every month we met and advised and then contributed. Unfortunately, he didn't last long and died. Since then, for 2 decades almost, successors haven't done anything. No. These are people who are, most chiefs, people would just like to identify and serve you. It's try to avoid divisions and bringing them together for the common good of the people. Because Ghana today is such that every district you go to or every chiefdom, there are people who come from there, some overseas, some local. And once you are inclusive and you mobilize them, you have free advice, sometimes free resources, and you can see some of them even willing to be there physically. I remember the regent of Adansi once calling the people, the students in the area together, and he invited my daughter, who was a pediatrician at a very young age, to come and address them, so that they would see that a young girl of 27 can be a pediatrician. They don't have to litter babies from the age of 17. And my daughter left from Kolebu, where he was also teaching in the medical school, to go and spend time for free. You don't have to pay. Why? Because he comes as a citizen of the land. Unfortunately, every now and then, there is exclusion, there's the division, one gate against the other, and therefore, the district or the chiefdom suffers. And part of the reason has to do with the motivation of how people want to get into the chieftaincy position. These days, even people who are not of royal blood think that they have money, they have political connection, so they want to ascend, and then they divide the place forever. They become actually agents of destruction and dysfunctionality rather than being agents, positive agents for development. If you go there and as a chief, you are supporting Galamsey, destroying the rivers, people hate you, literally, even though they may say Nana. because you are not being altruistic in your motivation for the good of the people. You are not supporting the inclusion and the development of the area. But what a joy to have a king who will say, or a governor like Nehemiah says, let us rise and build. We can be better off, whether it is this Togo kingdom or chiefdom. Our people must be among the best in this country in education, in discipline, and the rest. And you can do so. And again, a chief has if he's really worthy of salt, has the advantage of being able to leverage government support, NGOs, and the rest. That is what a chief is for. You become the leader and the eye of the people. And above all, you want people to be proud. Sometimes they overdo it, but when I hear people call, say, Asante King Solomon, it means that they are seeing in you something that is unique. Let your people be proud of you, and then you become the rallying point of their aspirations and a symbol of their unity. I believe that finally, the chief, once you're there, sometimes I put a spin. They say, well, dear, Adidie in tree means inheriting as a chief, but literally also means that you are in to chop. No, a chief is not there to chop. A chief is meant to lead his people, to provide vision, to provide strategies, to mobilize his people, and to make a difference, so that you can say that during my reign, I left this legacy. May God help our chiefs, because Ghanaians are looking to them to provide the leadership that will make a difference in their areas. We will be talking about political leadership, but I believe that when the chiefs decide to do right and provide leadership, the politicians will toe the line. That is why when they are campaigning, their first place of stop is the palace. And they come and dash you a little bit money or drink and everything, and you accept it. When they leave, they have no respect for you. When they get the authority, they don't mind you. And that is why many chiefs say that the politicians don't care for us, they are sidestepping us. If you have already gotten something for your pocket or a drink before they became political leaders, they see you as a purchasable commodity. But when you do right, they will respect you. When they are coming to your area, they know that if they don't come properly with a message and no development, you will mobilize your people against them. But how many chiefs can say that they represent their people in terms of influence? God has given chiefs authority, power, and name. May they be encouraged to use them for the good of our people. Nananom, Mungwaso, Mumma, Omayi, and Tisse Ahimfuho, no man kosuo, and Nedi. The Lord be with you. We'll meet again when we start the political leadership, where we will spend a few weeks unraveling that in leadership for everyone everywhere, we want to see functional political leaders, because without that, we aren't going anywhere. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you. Don't forget, it's always ZFM 101.9. And if you miss it, go to Professor Emeritus Stephen Adei's YouTube. The Lord be with you.